Welcome to the second installment of the Clearwater whitetail deer blog. Today we're going to talk about harvest statistics. If you remember from the first blog, we talked about the importance of stopping at check stations and filling out mandatory harvest reports. Well, harvest statistics are the next step in that data's way to becoming management tools. Harvest statistics are unique because they come exclusively from our hunters and those folks in the field and help give us an idea of what populations are doing, keep tabs on those populations through time, and inform management decisions. Today, we're going to go through a couple of different topics related to harvest statistics, those being what harvest statistics are, why they're particularly helpful for species like whitetails that prove challenging to monitor in other ways, and go through a regional example of how harvest statistics helped inform whitetail deer management here in the Clearwater.
Wildlife managers and biologists use harvest statistics to help manage white-tailed deer populations across their range. But why? To help answer this question, we're going to discuss what makes whitetails difficult to survey on the ground and how harvest statistics can help us overcome those challenges. Once we've established how we use harvest statistics, we will apply our knowledge to a real-world example of how harvest statistics help guide whitetail management in the Clearwater. To begin, what makes whitetail deer so difficult to count? Whitetail deer occupy habitats with lots of cover. Dense tree canopies and brush do an excellent job of hiding whitetails, making them difficult to count, even from a helicopter. Think about it this way. How many times have you been out hunting whitetails and found the perfect spot to stop and glass? You sit down and stare at a hillside for hours, thinking to yourself, there has to be a deer over there. But you glass until boredom sets in without turning anything up. You know they're there, but you just can't see them. Unlike surveying elk or mule deer in more open country, white-tailed deer can be hard to find and disappear quickly in their habitats. So, what do? Because accurately counting whitetails on the hoof is difficult, agencies instead rely on hunter information from harvested deer to help gauge what is happening with their populations. Each year, hunters across the state hunt for and harvest whitetails, granting them exclusive access to information about their hunt, their success, and their harvests. That is the information agencies rely on to understand the ins and outs of whitetail populations through time, which requires careful interpretation. This is why each hunter report is important. Together, these reports provide the information agencies rely on to help manage this unique resource. So, what are harvest statistics? This is where you as a hunter comes in. Harvest statistics are the grouping of data provided by hunters that reflect their hunting experiences. When a hunter passes through a check station or completes a mandatory harvest report, they're providing the data that is used to generate harvest statistics. For example, you hunted hard all week and harvested your first whitetail buck. Once you got home and had time to take care of your deer, you decide to hop online and take care of your hunter report. The mandatory hunt report asks you questions such as whether or not you hunted on your tag, where you hunted, if you harvested, what unit you harvested in, when you harvested, whether you harvested a buck or a doe, and if you harvested a buck, how many antler points are on each side of that buck's rack. These and other questions on your report help build harvest statistics. Similarly, if you hunted all season and were unsuccessful, reporting that you did not harvest is also important. Knowing that you did not fill your tag helps us understand the success rates of hunters and the effort, which again helps build harvest statistics. On its own, a singular hunting report might not look like much. However, when we start adding harvest reports from hunters together, we can begin to see how the majority of hunters fared throughout the season and start drawing conclusions about the populations of deer being hunted. With information from hunters all across the state, we're able to develop an understanding of all sorts of whitetail harvest statistics. From deer harvest and hunter numbers to the proportion of bucks with 5 or more points on an antler, this is the information that tells us a lot about whitetails and whitetail hunters. As we continue to build this information each fall, we start to develop a pretty good idea of what whitetail populations are doing. Now, let's go over a hypothetical example. If hunter success on a general hunt was near 100% and the number of days hunters are spending afield chasing whitetails each year are fairly low, this would lead me to believe that there are a lot of deer on the landscape because hunters are not having difficulty filling their tags. On the other end of the spectrum, if hunter success in a general hunt is hovering around 0%, and the number of days hunters spend pursuing whitetails each year are relatively high for multiple years, I would assume there are few deer on the landscape because hunters are having a very hard time finding success. Although these examples represent extremes when it comes to the interpretation of harvest statistics, they provide a baseline for how harvest stats help us understand what is going on with white-tailed deer populations. If you're ever interested in scrolling through these statistics when planning a hunt or checking the harvest in your favorite unit, this data is made available to the public through the Idaho Hunt Planner application on the Idaho Fish and Game website and worth checking out. Now that we understand the basics of harvest statistics and how to interpret them, let's look over a recent example of how harvest statistics help drive white-tailed deer management here in the Clearwater. This figure depicts the change in total white-tailed deer harvest in Game Management Unit 11A between 2010 and 2022. Take a minute to look over the figure, pause the video if you need to, and think about what white-tailed deer populations are doing in the unit based on these harvest statistics. Next, think about these 3 questions as they relate to the figure. What is the population doing? What other information may help me understand what is going on? And is a management change necessary based on the information I have? Let's tackle the first question. What is the population doing? From what I can see, harvest remained relatively stable until 2020. But in 2021, our harvest looks like it dropped off a cliff. So what happened? With harvest dropping that quickly, this would indicate to me that the population is also dropping, and that's bad news for both whitetails and whitetail hunters. So, what should we do? Cut tags, limit harvest, let this population recover, right? Before jumping to any management decisions, we should consider what other information may be helpful to understand what is going on within the unit. First, what caused our harvest to drop? Second, are there any other harvest statistics that might help us better understand what is going on? Remember, hunters provide information about their harvests, but they also answer questions about their hunting experience that may be helpful in this situation. After some digging, we found a couple useful pieces of information that can help us when interpreting this data. First, we learned that there was an outbreak of epizootic hemorrhagic disease, or EHD, in the Clearwater that occurred in 2021. Reports suggest this outbreak centered around GMU 11A and resulted in many white-tailed deer becoming sick and succumbing to the disease. So that has to be it. This explains why our harvest dropped so quickly from 2020 to 2021, right? Well, the EHD outbreak likely played a role in our observed decline in harvest. But before we jump to any conclusions, we should circle back to our harvest statistics. What other questions do hunters answer when filling out their hunter reports? I'll give you a hint. I know most folks are hard-pressed to give up their good spots when it comes to hunting, and rightfully so. But it does seem like some folks are a little more willing to share where not to go when hunting is poor. Can you guess how I figured this out? If you guessed by checking hunter numbers using harvest statistics, you would be right. This figure charts the change in total harvest, represented by the blue line, and the number of hunters, the orange line, in Unit 11A. Data is available between 2001 and 2022. Thankfully, hunters were providing information about their hunts all the way back then that can help us today. When looking at this graph, the first thing I notice is that our 2021 harvest is the lowest observed in the last 20 years. Some quick math tells me that the harvest fell roughly 67% in 2021, which is a cause for concern. But before jumping to a management change, I can see that hunter numbers dropped to a 20-year low around the same time. Another quick calculation tells me that hunter numbers dropped around 40% the same year. I had a suspicion that word would spread quickly about the EHD outbreak and its effects on deer, which could cause hunters who usually hunt the unit to go elsewhere. After all, would you hunt the same place if your buddy told you that a disease outbreak caused deer to die where you typically like to hunt? Well, probably not. And according to our harvest statistics, hunters in the unit felt the same way. So, total harvest is down, but can we expect the unit's harvest to remain stable with 40% less hunters in that unit? The short answer is no. Now let's revisit our original questions. What is the population doing? We have determined that the population has dropped as indicated by our change in deer harvest. What other information have we found that may help us understand what's going on? We learned that an EHD outbreak impacted deer herds in the unit and likely played a role in population declines. However, we also noticed that hunter numbers dropped substantially around the same time as our harvest decline, leading us to believe that many hunters decided to hunt other units and avoid the impact of EHD in Unit 11A. So, what do you think? Is a management change necessary? In this instance, the Idaho Fish and Game opted to shorten the white-tailed deer any weapon season in Unit 11A by 11 days. This change was made to help white-tailed deer populations recover quickly from the effects of the EHD outbreak. Although the sharp decline in hunter numbers certainly influenced white-tailed deer harvest, the decline in harvest was greater than the proportion of hunters lost. This information, coupled with first-hand accounts of population declines in the unit, provided strong support for a change to help whitetail populations recover more quickly.
Since 1975, Idaho Department of Fish and Game biologists have used harvest statistics to help monitor and track white-tailed deer populations. Because white-tailed deer are so good at hiding and disappearing in their habitats, they provide difficult situations for monitoring on the hoof. That's why, across their range, biologists use harvest information to help contribute to the understanding of white-tailed deer populations and inform management decisions. That's why providing information about your unique hunting experience is so crucial to the management of white-tailed deer, because each individual experience provides a data point that helps us better understand whitetail where you're hunting. Thanks for listening today. As always, good luck on your next hunting adventure.